Avançamos para o painel Saúde e Autarquias, Cocriação de Soluções Locais, e para a qual conto com David Hunter, professor emérito de Gestão e Políticas de Saúde da Newcastle University, Kira Fortune, da Healthy Cities Network, que se junta a nós por via remota também, e António Taveira Gomes, presidente da Unidade Local de Saúde de Matosinhos, como sabem, foi a primeira do país. Professor, vou-lhe pedir que me faça companhia desde já aqui no palco. E vamos estabelecer esta ligação com os nossos dois outros protagonistas. Hello, Professor. Are you hearing us?
Yes, I am.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You have a 10 minutes presentation. Go ahead, please.
Right, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Sorry not to be with you. I was all ready to leave for the airport yesterday and the plane got cancelled at the last minute, so very sorry not to be with you. I am not going to use slides. I'm just going to speak to a few notes about my work in two projects for WHO in the European region conducted between 2019 and 2023. The first was a study of how health system transformation can succeed by reviewing progress developments in 3 European countries, Portugal, Sweden and England. And that was done with a colleague in Bilbao, Rafael Bengoa, who might be known to some of you. The second project was a study commissioned by WHO Working Group on collaboration of local and subnational authorities, which include interviews with 40 local policymakers and administrators in 2 regions and 6 cities across Europe. And the purpose of this project was to gain greater understanding of practices, opportunities, challenges, and governance models to support engagement of subnational and local government in environment and health policies. There's much overlap between the findings from both these projects, but I'm going to focus on the second one because I think that's most relevant for this panel discussion. This is the briefing paper here, which you can get through WHO. It's a very short policy brief and it summarizes all the project findings that I'm going to briefly talk about now. I can send you the details if you need them. Overall, I just want to make the point that local government is the better level for improving health. It's a public health organization. Everything that local government does impacts on the public's health in one way or another. At local level, policy failure and policy success are more easily identified and communicated at the local level than at the national level, where things are more complicated and complex. The diversity of stakeholders at the local level is more easily identifiable, and engaging them, getting them into one room from different departments and different areas of activity is often more manageable and more achievable. Thirdly, localities have the potential to break free from rigid structures and paradigms and be more flexible, experiment, do things differently, try new ways of tackling problems. That's more difficult at the national level, I would argue, but at regional and particularly local level, it's often easier to do that. And finally, everyone has a better chance of being heard at the local level, including the public, citizens, the civic community. Now, that rosy framing of the virtues of local government have to be balanced by a reality check that many challenges remain in local government. Some local institutions fail to be transparent and retreat behind bureaucratic walls. Community engagement in policymaking and participation in democratic institutions is often weak or lacking. The rhetoric is there, people keep talking about the need for it, but the reality of achieving it is often weak and doesn't happen. But at its best, good local government and local governance has a real opportunity to improve health in a way that perhaps is more difficult at other levels of administration. So this WHO study on the promotion of health policies at local level gave rise to 6 key messages on effective practices, and I'll just very quickly go through them, and that'll be my 10 minutes up. So the first key message is develop and share a coherent, realizable vision of sustainable, healthy policies. The vision and accompanying policies must be developed and shared with partners, both within and outside local government, so other civic societies, civic bodies within the community, the private sector, as well as public sector bodies. And within that vision, sustained political will is essential to ensure that the vision remains coherent and is realized and the policy is implemented. So that vision is an important starting point. Lack of coherence and effective partnership working across different silos and boundaries can result in a fragmented vision, mixed messages for local partners, and barriers in implementation. So having that vision shared by all the relevant parties is critical. The second message is that legislation is necessary to support the vision and provide the means for acting on it. And this is critical. Legislation at national level must be supportive of local action and not contradictory. Often there's a tension between the two. Often what happens nationally is not coherent in terms of what needs to happen locally. And there's a kind of disconnect between the two levels. Local strategies might need to have national legislative backing to be successful, but that backing has to be complementary to what's happening at the local level and not contradictory. And such backing might include taxation or regulations to discourage unhealthy or polluting behaviour, building regulations for effective housing, and so on. And appropriate resources have to go with it. But there has to be convergence between what's happening nationally and what's happening locally, and legislation is a way of achieving that. But it needs to be coherent. For example, one of our national subnational policymaker in the interview we conducted said that their national government's policy was in total alignment with what's happening locally, apart from the fact that whereas the local authority's target for its net zero ambition was 2030, the government's target was 2050. And that allowed people to say the local authority wasn't able to pursue its agenda locally because the timeline was so different between what was being said nationally and what they were hoping to achieve locally. There was a 20-year difference. So that led to difficulty in implementation. Right, key message 3, promote cross-sectoral collaboration and communication to address environment and health issues. Partnerships, as Jose Martin Marino was saying, are essential to ensure that all stakeholders focus on supporting local and subnational collaboration and intersectoral work. And where possible, adopting a health and all policies approach, which was devised by the Finns many years ago and was accepted by the European Union more recently, adopting that kind of approach should be encouraged, with public health professionals taking a lead role, but avoiding health imperialism, which risks causing offence. Health is not necessarily seen as the key issue for others involved in activities that impact on health, but aren't central to what they do, whether it be in transport, education, the environment, housing. There are health dimensions to all of these. And the key to getting health into those policy areas is to work with those people in those areas, not in an imperialistic way, but in an engaging, sympathetic, collaborative way to see how health can be improved as part of what they're trying to do in respect of their missions for better education, better housing, whatever. So shared understanding that health and well-being are priorities for all people in various sectors is key and requires a shared language to facilitate cross-sectoral working. It also requires people who can work across those different boundaries. And there's a big literature on what are called boundary spanners, people who can work across different organizations, different boundaries, different levels, different sectors, different silos, to make those different groups come together to devise a shared language and a shared solution to problems that they're both struggling to resolve. So those boundary spanners are key. Identifying them, nurturing them, developing them is critical. Part of that, I think, is to avoid over-specialization. We don't need more silos. We need professional silos or whatever. We need more generalist skills to make those cross-sector activities work more effectively. And communication strategies are part of that, including knowledge sharing to challenge popular misconceptions and myths. There are a lot of myths around environment and health. For example, there are people who deny climate change is a problem. There are people who think we should be giving in to the car driving lobby, that cars are an important guarantee of economic development, rather than there being other ways of tackling economic development. So there are lots of myths that need to be countered, and good communication strategies, proper engagement with the public is key to that. Key message 4. Support citizen engagement and communication. Place-based policy should be developed with leading community organisations. Citizen engagement is the development of strategies and projects needs to be encouraged and embraced. Co-design is the aim, with a focus on bottom-up rather than top-down working. And again, Martin Marino made some comments on all this. Health impact assessments can be used to reach the public and other stakeholders to show how important health is in terms of its impact on various sectors and various activities. How issues are framed is critical for effective public engagement, as is the use of social media in that context. And part of that is about challenging those popular myths I mentioned, but also about using social media to communicate with the public in a way that engages with them. Key message 5, one more to go after this, enabling factors for healthy, sustainable policies. Implementation of policies is not a linear process, but contingent upon different contexts, again, as was being said earlier in the earlier presentation. Many factors will affect implementation, including leadership style, working practices, the degree of trust which exists, and collaboration, and the linking of strategy to implementation. Political support is an important enabler. Flexibility is also essential, since each local situation and each context is unique and may require a different approach. And simply scaling up or spreading and sharing from one successful project in one local authority to another local authority or location risks ignoring how contexts can vary and how complex they are. Again, echoing what Jose Martin Molina was saying earlier. So readiness for change is essential, but the ability to embrace complexity and address uncertainty within and between levels of government and with bodies outside government is vital. This requires new types of leadership, system leadership, which can work across boundaries. And leaders that are not heroic, don't come in knowing all the answers and all the solutions, but are leaders who are maybe quieter, maybe more adaptive, more prepared to listen, ask questions, find solutions, working with others to identify what they might be, rather than coming in a way that often happens in healthcare systems with managers, leaders knowing all the answers, and then things don't work out well. Last key message, invest in evaluation and monitoring. All local projects interventions should ideally be monitored and evaluated to assess what has worked and what has not worked and why, again echoing what was said earlier. So adopting a plan, do, check and adjust approach is recommended. Don't wait for the perfect evidence base to appear, because it won't. We have good enough evidence in many of these sectors to make progress. And the idea is that we should be getting going, making activity happen, plan, do, check, reevaluate, assess, monitor, and where necessary, change course, adjust, amend, modify to tackle the problems that emerge. A lot of the public health issues are emergent. The solutions are emergent. They're not given. We have to deal with them as we are working through them on the ground in actual practice. So it's important to ensure that as part of the implementation process, a local budget exists that can be created for monitoring and evaluation of projects. Often we set projects up and we don't monitor or evaluate their impact, and that's important to do at the outset of the project. Right, that's all I need to say. I think I've covered my 10 minutes. Happy to discuss any of these issues in the discussion later, but thank you for your attention.
So, time to listen to Kira Fortune, keeping in mind... Professor Kira, are you with us? Não estou a ver a professora.
I am indeed.
So, you are listening well?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Not yet, to be
Not
honest.
yet. Okay, just give me 1 second.
We are hearing you loudly and clear, but the image is...
Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Just give me 1 second, and I'm just sorting it out right now. They can hear me, but they can't see me.
Where's your children? Oh, yes, maybe.
Okay, I have a lovely colleague here who is much better at this IT than I am.
Falava muito depressa, tive dificuldade em apanhar metade. Tive dificuldade em apanhar metade. Oh.
It's coming?
Yes, welcome.
Fantastic.
Nice to see you. Welcome,
I
Professor.
can't see you just yet, but we're just trying to get the presentation up. So apologies, colleagues. We did do a little test before, but we are used to working with Teams, and we're not so familiar with the Zoom. So my apologies, colleagues.
Okay.
But if you can you see this? Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Wonderful, then I will get going. So thank you very much, and good morning, colleagues. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be addressing you here from Copenhagen. My only regret, of course, is that I cannot be with you in person. What I'm going to do over the next 10 minutes is that I will talk you through a little bit of a global and regional context, then speak to the role of healthy cities in advancing equity through local and cross-sector action. And then I will conclude by proposing some core ways that we can work together. So colleagues, can you see my next slide? No. Yes. So let me start by taking you back to the past. We are addressing the future of health, but let me start by taking you back to 2015, 2015 was a historic year in the sense that the global community concluded the Millennium Development Goals and adopted the Sustainable Development Goals. And therefore, it was a time to take stock of the progress that we have made. And I think there was a recognition that much had been achieved, but there was also a recognition that not everybody had benefited from the progress made. So we saw that there was an increase in life expectancy, a decrease in extreme poverty. Not everybody had benefited equally, and equity continued to be.
Sorry to interrupt. We are still in the first slide.
Yes, and I'm going to speak. You're still in the first slide. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just. How about now?
No.
No? Now?
Yes.
Yes, wonderful.
Yes.
So, colleagues, let me just find my thread again. My apologies, colleagues. So I think we've got it up and running now. So again, as I said, the place that you're born matters. And if you are a child being born in Japan today, you are likely to live 32 years longer than if you were born in Mozambique. So the place that the place we are born matters. But inequities don't just exist between countries, it also exists within countries. I used to live in Washington, D.C. You will see a map of the metro just up here. And what you will see is that I used to commute on this red line, and just between 17 metro stops spanning 30 miles, you will see that there is an estimated 9-year difference in terms of lifespan. It is often said that our postal code matters more than our genetic code. And this is really important for the conversation that we are going to have as we move forward, because, of course, city mayors play an essential role in terms of addressing that equity gap. Just to say that the Mayor of London, a few years ago, he convened some commissioners understanding the need to really close that equity gap. And therefore, he put together a report. And you will see that if we move a little closer to the region, you'll see that life expectancy varies between geographics. And again, just looking at the Elizabeth Underground, you'll see that there is a life expectancy difference of over 15 years for boys being born in Custom House compared to those born at Liverpool Street. If we zoom out a little bit and think about the region as a whole, where I work as part of the WHO, you will see that the region is heavily urbanized. That means that 2/3 of the population lives in urban environments. In high-income countries, we are seeing that 1 child in 5 lives in poverty, and 1.4 million Europeans die prematurely each year due to pollution. To address those challenges, we have put together a European program of work, and this is a way to really hone in on those challenges. And in fact, what you will see in that plan of action is that we are really focusing on local action, recognizing that if we are to make changes, we really need to work hand in hand with communities, but also really to hone in on local action. And I'm not sure you can see can you see my slides moving, colleagues?
Yes.
You can. Okay. So we heard the previous speakers talking about the need to really think about people. And in fact, at the Regional Healthy Cities Network, people is at the very center of all that we do. And I just want to share a hypothetical story of the life of Jana. In the relatively short life course, she has been in touch with the health systems on a number of occasions, but every time she has been sent back to the environment that's making her sick in the first place. And in fact, this is what we are looking to change. This is what we are trying to change. And this is also where local governments are very strategically placed to ensure that people and the next generation like Jana, that we change her future. And of course, it is because local government, they understand that health does not just happen in hospitals, it happens in the environment where we are born, where we play, where we work. And there is also a deep knowledge of the challenges that communities they live through, and local governments are also used to bringing different sectors together so that they really understand the need to really address people like Jana in a more comprehensive manner. Now, what is the WHO European Healthy Cities Network? The network was established more than 35 years ago. It was really a way to put into practice and put into the streets of the people the Ottawa Charter of Health Promotion. 35 years ago, it was just 11 cities that came together. It was seen more as a bit of a project to really test how to really address the health within the environment. But since then we have grown, and we are now a network that consists of more than 1,900 cities. And we estimate that we reach approximately 200 million people in the region as a whole. We operate in program phases, and this means that we are currently what we refer to phase 7, and we're about to launch phase 8. We have planned our work around the Sustainable Development Goals, where we are really honing in on the different P for peace, planet, place, people, participation, prosperity. And as we're about to launch phase 8, so our next program cycle, we are indeed going to hone in on a new P, which is P for prepare. Our priorities are really, as I said, around those different Ps, and we plan our work according to that. So what you will see is that our cities are really leading by example, and I've just highlighted some of the areas that the cities they work in. I should also say we have a data hub that was launched just last year, where we capture all the information, all the evidence that the cities are bringing together. And in that way, it's our opportunity to really use that evidence, come together, forge strategic partnerships between the cities as well, understanding that each city is unique, but that there are also commonalities. And by bringing these cities together, we can really, truly make a difference. So really what's unique about the Healthy Cities Network is that we are really co-creating local solutions. We have many examples of that. We have a lot of interest in the 15 to the 10-minute cities at the moment. You may be very familiar with Carlos Moreno, who is the urban planner that has been very instrumental in shaping the city of Paris. Our cities are extremely keen to ensure that this is a concept that is applied throughout the region. I have just highlighted Utrecht here, that has put together a very ambitious local plan where they're really ensuring that services are readily available for the community, but that they're also taking into account issues around housing, really looking at public spaces, and really thinking about the issue of ensuring that the community is on board as they shape this vision. Another key example is that of participatory budgeting that we are seeing in the Czech Republic, in Brno to be precise, and they have been very instrumental in really engaging the community in really assessing what are key priorities to the community and how should the budget be allocated accordingly. And this is an issue that has, again, where we have seen a lot of interest in this type of methodology, and we are, of course, sharing this more widely with the cities that we work with as well. And just to bring another example, which is that of the city of Cork, where they're bringing healthy food to every neighborhood, and they have established and developed this digital food map to really identify where those are most vulnerable. And together they are reducing food waste through very specific initiatives, but also really truly prioritizing education. We have a number of tools that we use within the network. One of them is the Place Standard tool. This is a methodology that has been developed by one of our collaborating centers. It is a tool that is very widely used because it has some very specific questions, and its strength is that it really brings different actors together, really assessing the public space and looking at the social aspects and making sure that these really cross sort of divisional conversations are aligned with the local planning. And again, we saw firsthand just recently when we brought our cities together at our annual business meeting in Bursa in Turkey. We actually tested this tool in Izmir and saw the benefits of, again, really understanding how to plan for and with the community. So what's unique about the Healthy Cities Network is, of course, that it's a very rich network. And we understand that each city is unique, but at the same time, we find that bringing cities together, sharing knowledge, and co-creating and addressing these different challenges together is what is really the strength of our network. And you will also see that we don't necessarily just operate in Europe. We work with other WHO regions. And one such example is of a study tour we conducted with mayors and political leaders from the network who were keen in learning more about the green and blue spaces in Japan. And just to say that after that visit, this is also where we, as a concrete result of that, we shaped a piloting on the well-being economy based on the learnings from Japan. So, colleagues, this was a snapshot of what we do, of the importance of really engaging local authorities. We are, of course, looking to collaborate with you. And as I said, we have a database where we capture all the information from all the cities that we work with. So we want to share that knowledge more widely, and we would very much welcome further expanding on pilot projects and city initiatives together with you. But we are also really looking to ensure that we again, spotlight your expertise, your knowledge, and we do that through various ways, including that of webinars, including that of through our working groups and task forces. And then we connect and we come together every year with all of our cities, where this is an opportunity for us to take stock of the work that we have done, but also to plan for the future. And in fact, our next annual business meeting will be held in Viana do Castelo in Portugal in June. And we would very much welcome you to join us there, because this is, of course, an opportunity to not just learn from one another, but also to put all of that learning into practice. Because what I will say, and I think what this network is showing, is that the former speaker spoke about that we are really living in this fragmented world. We are living through social unrest. We've lived through pandemics. And what cities have really been showing is that when nations talk, cities truly act. So with that, colleagues, I believe my 10 minutes are up, and apologies for the slight hiccup with the technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Picking up a little bit from the wrap that you just did, Cara, putting the focus on reducing hospital pressure. Of the 1,400 municipalities in the Health Cities Network, can you share concrete examples where local government action has effectively reduced hospital emergencies or readmissions? What types of local interventions have, in your opinion, had the great impact?
Thank you so much. And I think that's a really, really important question, because, as I said, the whole sort of philosophy of the network is precisely that health happens in the environment where we live, where we work, where we play, and we say also these days where we Google. And I think what we have seen, I mean, I tried to show some spotlights, some core examples, but didn't have the sort of time to go into in great detail. But what we are seeing is that a lot of these cities that are really sort of honing in on say the 15-minute cities where they're bringing together different public services in one place, but also in parallel really honing in on the social participation and addressing issues of loneliness. That's where we are seeing that they are making a real impact, so to speak. The city of Cork, as we saw here as well, they are really engaging with the community. They're engaging with schools. They're engaging with the general public through these local food initiatives, and it just means that they are bringing they're bringing the community together. And again, they are of course they're of course collecting and gathering all those learnings to really show the impact. And what they're seeing is that they are, it is truly having an impact in the sense that there is an understanding of the local needs, and those are being addressed accordingly.
I'll just come back to you. Let me go to David Hunter to join us again. David, Professor? Are you still with us, I hope?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So, following this line of thinking, and after your presentation as well, let me focus now on the limited resources that we have. Local authorities and hospital managers constantly here do more, do with less. You know what I'm talking about. So co-creation takes time and resources, of course. How can this investment be justified to those who control budgets when the pressure is for immediate results? Are you coping with that in there also?
Yes, absolutely. Our local government funding has been cut significantly over the last 14, 15 years, and many of the functions local government did in terms of community centres, swimming pools, libraries, recreation centres, they've all disappeared. Local government is more focused now on social care, which is the big growing sector, than almost anything else. So local governments have been stripped of many of their former functions, and it's a really critical period for them. On the other hand, paradoxically, that makes it even more important to collaborate and bring together what resources there are in a local area to maximise the potential impact of those resources on the health of the community. So the fact that local government is struggling, the fact that the health service is struggling, if they come together to pool some of their resources, they can actually do things more effectively and differently than if they were struggling to survive on their own. So the pressure from budget cuts and so on can actually be an incentive to collaborate rather than people defending their budgets because they haven't got them to defend. It makes it easier for them to say, well, can we pool our resources in some way and do things differently? And one of the big things that's happening in the health sector here is social prescribing, where general practitioners and others are prescribing people exercise, the community, get in touch with nature, connect with nature, go cycling, do something that doesn't require medicine, doesn't require pills, doesn't require treatment. And the evidence base for social prescribing is actually becoming quite significantly impressive in terms of what can be done to keep people out of hospital and in the community at minimal cost. Walking 45 minutes a day, for example, can turn people's lives around. And we need more of that. And I think that's where the pressures on budgets can actually create opportunities for innovation and change.
I don't know if you have the chance to hear the presentation of the previous keynote speaker, but José Martín Moreno, as you talked about the problem of silos. We have a lot of resistance in the ground, in the first line still. Here in Portugal, and I was wondering if you feel that there as well, that problem is already put behind us. We have a big struggle with task shifts. Here in Portugal, we want to divide. We want to divide the tasks. We want to optimize the resources, but we have a lot of resistance in task shifts. How do you handle that over there?
Well, there's no easy answer, but one of the interviewees in that study I talked about said that in their location, a new office had been created that comprised all the teams related to the project they were working on. So everyone working on a particular project was brought together into one facility, one room. And it was the first time that city had had an intersectoral team and an office working together. And it was a real success. It was a real opportunity for people to break down those barriers, those defensive boundaries that people feel they have to hang on to for their professional survival. And this facility didn't just enable people to work together, but also avoided another layer of bureaucracy because all the public space projects had to be signed off by all sectors involved. And with this new group working collectively together in one place, it was much easier to do all the sign-off and all the regulatory business that needed to be achieved. So there are things that can be done locally if the will is there. I think political will, political commitment is really important in this regard, but also I think people have to be listened to and taken along on board. They mustn't be seen to be under threat in some way. And I always feel that the target culture we have in our health systems is actually dysfunctional and counterproductive. We ought to be helping people to improve, not manage their performance in a kind of top-down, big stick, bullying kind of way, which is unhelpful and demotivating. We need to bring people with us by bringing them on board, listening to their concerns and trying to address those through a much more sympathetic system that relies on encouraging improvement, not managing performance all the time.
Thank you. I have one more question for you, but let me go back to Kyra. Professor, this project that you, I'm hoping to see the Kyra Fortune with us again.
I am here.
There you are. Picking up this example and taking on board vulnerable populations as well, hospitals, as you know, receive the most vulnerable populations, homeless, isolated elderly people, and those with chronic illnesses. And this is, of course, an ongoing problem. How can hospitals act as a bridge for these people to participate in local co-creation processes? Because this is a public health matter as well. This is a growing problem.
Yeah, so thank you again for that question. So I think what's important is that, again, David spoke to it, we need to understand the needs of the community much better and work with the community to understand their needs and shape our solutions accordingly. So I think, but at the same time, I think we also need to think about how do we bring the services out in the community so that we work with schools, we work with workplaces, we work with faith-based organizations, because again, we need to put those services out where the people they live and where they work. And in that sense, I think this is where we would have a much better chance of, again, really reaching those that are most vulnerable.
It's very, very curious because in the intervention of José Martín Moreno, in the intervention of Evie Hunter, and your own intervention, listening is the verb, is the key verb. It's common to your presentations. But in real life and in the real practices, this is very hard. And establish these amazing and indispensable partnerships. It's proven to be in day basis the hardest thing that we can manage and we can achieve. So in your opinion, where to begin to involve a municipality in co-creation solutions?
So again, I think I mean, we work a lot with mayors, and I think mayors are very well positioned because, again, as I said earlier, they have knowledge not just of people's health, but also of employment, of housing. They understand that that we don't just come in these silos. So I think this is one way of doing it. But I think we have also seen examples like in Brno in the Czech Republic, where they have established these social mechanisms for the community to come together. What I do think we need to be better at is to making sure that those mechanisms, they become more the norm as they are. I agree with you. And I think COVID taught us that we like to say in practice that we should work with communities and we should co-create, but in practice it doesn't always work that way. But I think we need to strengthen those mechanisms, and we have a lot of evidence and good practices, and they exist at local levels. So I think we also need to be better at spotlighting those so that we can also share that with policymakers at the global level as well, so that those local lessons, they trickle upwards, so to speak.
So going from the basis up, right? So the local to pressure the center, to the central government and the central politics. Of course, because of the pressure of aging and integrated care, and also because of mental health, that is an epidemic, as we know. Agree?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to pass to David. Stay with us for a little longer, please. David, political cycles are a main issue in this dynamic as well. How to create co-creation processes that survive these changes and don't die with each new leadership? Hoping to see David. Yeah.
No, a very good question, and it's a problem we all have to handle and live with. In some ways, it's better at local level, having greater continuity over time. I don't get the impression at local level electoral cycles such an issue. It may become one in some countries, but with the more upheaval we're witnessing in many countries. But I think local level, there's more sustainability, more continuity, more agreement across parties, across different elements. As I said earlier, at the local level, people tend to be there are fewer people to engage, it's more manageable to get things done, you can work across different political boundaries. The national level, I think, is a completely different picture. There you're caught in electoral cycles of 5 years, and much of what we're trying to do in public health and so on takes much longer than that to show impact, although you can get some quick wins. And I think the COVID pandemic showed that in terms of how fast the local and regional government could operate in a way that was much more fleet of foot and nimble than national level organisations, which were quite bureaucratic and clumsy and unable to work together. So there are good examples, I think, of how you can get around some of those political impediments and barriers. But yes, it's not easy. Governments come and change everything that the previous government's done, particularly in a system like ours, where it's first past the post and you have an adversarial system of government rather than people working across parties in a connected, collective way over time. So there's no answer to that, but I think, as Kira said, mayors, regional mayors are actually, we've introduced them in England now, and they're proving potentially quite effective at being able to bring together different interests and have a bit more continuity and a bit more sustainability over time. So but it's there's no easy answer to this.
Yes, because we have to empower the local leaderships and the local entities. Because it creates an enormous instability with these political cycles, obviously. Regarding the continuity of care, hospital discharges, avoidable readmissions, chronic problems, as you refer as well. From your research of the Care Act and integrated care, what conditions are essential for effective coordination between hospitals, local authorities, and social services?
Well, one is to stop restructuring. I mean, I think we endlessly change the structure. Governments come in saying, oh, we're not going to do any more structural change. And then within months, they start talking about structural change. And this government we've had now for over a year is no different. It's embarked on a major reorganisation in England. Scotland and Wales are thankfully saved from that hiatus. But I would say stop restructuring, work with what you've got. The government came in saying we want to keep integrated care systems going. They were introduced a few years ago. We want to maintain them and develop them. At the same time, as I say, they're fiddling with the structure of them, which is not helpful. It's demoralising, demotivating for staff. And it's not going to make policy stick. It's going to distract people from what they should be doing to worrying about their jobs and their futures in the new structure. So first, I would put culture first, structure last. Work with different cultures, work to get that ability to work across different cultures in place, using people like elected mayors who can cross sectoral boundaries, but keep national level out of all that activity. So that's the first thing I would say. Culture first, structure least. We stop meddling with the structure. Let the structure find its own solution to things. We're talking about wicked problems to which there are no simple solutions. And in that sense, let things emerge by trying different ways of doing things. And for that to happen, you need to have fairly stable structures and staff that stay in post. The other problem is the churn among staff. If you keep changing the structure, you keep losing expertise, experience, you demotivate staff. It's unhelpful to get that continuity and that trust that needs to be in place between different staff groups. So I think that's the main thing I would say. The other final point I would say is, in many countries, there's a bit of a standoff between local government and the health service. In our country, certainly there's a feeling that the NHS is somehow dominant and the dominant player, and local government has to jump to its tune. And the NHS has all the resources and local government has very little. And there's a kind of power imbalance between the two. I think we need to overcome that and see within those integrated care systems, local government and health bodies working much more closely together as co-equal partners, not with one being dominant over the other, which I think there's been a problem in that culture over the last, I would say, 40, 50 years since the health service was set up. So we do need to think about how we overcome that barrier in relation to those different cultures, so they work much more together in a place-based approach for their local communities.
Well, thank you. Of course, with the COVID, with the pandemics, a lot of priorities and the red flags are high, and we have to consider that. And that partnerships and that dialogue or the circuit between hospitals, local authorities to prepare for future crises is, of course, on the table. But it doesn't seem so obviously. So. Finally, putting a little bit of evidence versus local knowledge in place as a nice advisor as well, and you worked with scientific evidence. In co-creation processes, how do you balance evidence-based guidelines with the practical knowledge of the local community? Just to wrap up, please.
Well, I think evidence informed, I would say, rather than evidence-based. I don't think the evidence-based is completely infallible or perfect or complete. So evidence informed, and we know that other factors influence policy besides just evidence, like politics, like people's values and different interests and so on. But I do think we can bring evidence to bear in a way we haven't done in making that work across knowledge into practice. The knowledge barrier, I think, is one that we aren't very effective at bridging in terms of how we bring evidence to bear on problems. We have an evidence base in many areas, and we don't use it. I mean, for example, take minimum unit pricing, which was introduced in Scotland and is now proving to be very effective and is working in the way that the designers thought it would. The evidence is that it's keeping people out of hospital care and addressing some of the problems around alcohol misuse. But other countries in the UK aren't doing that. Wales is talking about it and probably will introduce it, but England's not. So there's a political issue there. It's not the evidence that's the problem. The problem is actually the policymakers refusing to take action, whether because they don't want to be called the nanny state or whether it's because of this obsession with economic growth at any cost, which means that they don't want to do things that are going to affect big business. I don't know, but there's a problem. There's a political problem there, I think, in many places, and that's why often in smaller countries or in regions within countries, it's easier to do things because you can get the buy-in across different groups more readily than you can at the national level. But as I say, evidence is only one part of the mix, and it's important, and we need to use the evidence we have more effectively than we are doing. It won't be complete, but it's good enough in many areas. But the problem, I would say, is that it's governments not using the evidence, ignoring the evidence, and being lobbied by vested interests that don't have health as their main business.
Yeah, thank you. It's a real challenge. So, Karen, just to wrap up as well, and picking up the idea that I put right now to David, keeping in mind the future crisis, that is a real problem, pandemics, climate inequalities, and you both already talked about the importance of the One Health that continues to be a little bit wrapped up and separated from it all. in spite of the risks that we all know. Kira, for a quick answer, a quick queen, if you allow me, if you had to recommend one concrete action to a hospital could take tomorrow to initiate co-creation with its local authority, what would it be? Keeping in mind these threats that we all know too well. It's for Kira.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So again, I think the answer lies in working closely with the mayor. And I think the recommendation would be to, again, set up a community group together with hospital staff and the mayor's office. I think in that sense, I think we need to sort of create those platforms where communities come together with local politicians, with hospital staff, and in that way address what those needs are. The other thing I would say is, to David's point, I think we also need to be much better at spotlighting those good practices that are already in place. I think we have, I mean, that's certainly something that we want to make sure that we do more of, so that the world becomes aware of all these good practices. Because we are set on a lot of data that we need to get out there and showcase. So again, and you know, a lot of it is also qualitative data that we need to ensure is acted upon and shared with the world.
So David Hunter, Kyra Fortune, thank you so much for joining us and your values contributions. Thank you. Nice to have you. Thank you so much. Professor, passamos assim. Eu acho que deveria ter candidatado a Presidente da Câmara nas últimas legislativas, depois destas intervenções das autárquicas. Professor, tem 10 minutos de intervenção. Depois de ouvirmos também estes interlocutores, quero fazer aqui também um apanhado, tendo em conta a sua experiência, e depois passamos à conversa.
Bem,
Microfonezinho, por favor.
É só falar para ele? Muito bem. Permitem-me, antes de dizer qualquer outra coisa, que cumprimento todos, que diga que é um grande prazer e gosto de estar convosco, agradecer à APAH o convite e a persistência na organização deste e muitos outros eventos verdadeiramente essenciais para o conhecimento que precisamos de gerar no contexto da saúde e a propósito da saúde, mas de uma forma alargada e como é encarada pela APAH e que é sempre com muito gosto que vejo e colaboro em todas as iniciativas que posso e que até tomo a liberdade de me agregar e de me associar. Em segundo lugar, agradeço muito as palavras do Dr. Xavier Barreto e como verão ao longo do tempo, elas são só simpáticas e mais nada, porque a ULS Matosinhos é a mais antiga do país, de facto. Recording stopped. Ok, a partir de agora é a candidatura a alguma coisa. Como vou acabar o mandato, se calhar até era uma boa hipótese. A Luísa Salgueiro está no último.
Eu já pensei nisso, mas...
e, portanto, é um município que satisfaz muito daquilo que foi dito em termos dos municípios e das cidades. E ainda temos acrescidamente a felicidade de hoje ser o Dia Mundial do Urbanismo, que bate tudo muito certo, ainda com estas preocupações em tornar tudo mais favorável para a saúde, sabendo nós que as grandes prioridades e os grandes determinantes para a saúde passam muito mais por muitas outras coisas do que cuidados de saúde. E, portanto, nós gastamos muito mais nos cuidados de saúde, provavelmente, do que a promover a saúde e a tratar das outras coisas. Em Matosinhos isso é uma prioridade muito significativa e tudo o que eu posso dizer sobre isso não interessa absolutamente nada a ninguém, porque não há mais nenhuma ULS em que a ULS coincida com o município, portanto vai ser muito mais complicado trabalhar com diferentes municípios, é como trabalhar com todas as pessoas, cada uma tem a sua individualidade, a sua dignidade, etc., e tem que se respeitar tudo isso. E, portanto, é exatamente nesse contexto que tudo o que eu diga só se pode concretizar nisso e, portanto, pode apenas constituir algum bom exemplo ou algum desafio para poder ser replicado. O trabalho e a colaboração com o município tem muitas interfaces, não há uma relação com o município. Há muitas relações com o município e com as estruturas do município. A primeira coisa que nós percebemos é que a própria autarquia e a estrutura autárquica também funciona, às vezes, como um silo por razões óbvias e até obrigatórias de acordo com os programas de financiamento e com a legislação, etc. Portanto, o município também não tem capacidade de fazer tudo o que é preciso fazer, que a saúde não faça diretamente. É preciso construir muitas coisas com muitos outros parceiros e o município tem um papel determinante na identificação e no estímulo para a participação destes diferentes parceiros, desde as escolas, desde as estruturas residenciais, desde tudo aquilo que a gente sabe, desde a cultura, as associações desportivas, as associações de todos, incluindo as associações de doentes, etc., as ligas, etc.
E
as estruturas de proteção civil,
essa ponte nota-se na sua OLS que funciona e flui.
Funciona e flui, de facto. Nós temos, como diziam, temos um excelente relacionamento com o município. É preciso que a Presidente do município fale com o Presidente do Conselho de Administração da OLS e vice-versa. Temos um diálogo permanente e uma forma de estar que já herdei do Vítor Herdeiro e de outros diferentes protagonistas no tempo, desde o nascimento da OLS, que era muito vincada a esta colaboração e a desenvolvimento de estruturas do município favoráveis às políticas de saúde. E, portanto, tudo se concretiza muito, mas não apenas num plano que é um bom exemplo, um plano municipal de saúde, pode ser um plano local ou regional de saúde, consoante as regiões que estejamos a falar, pode ter especificidades e prioridades consoante as estruturas que estamos a falar, porque nem tudo são OLS, também há os IPO e outras estruturas e, portanto, este desenvolvimento é muito importante.
O que é que destaca?
Daqui, do Plano Nacional, o Plano Municipal, destacamos um foco muito importante na estrutura da saúde pública e na definição de políticas de saúde, um papel determinante das questões de investigação, sobretudo de dados do mundo real, aquilo que também falavam, que depois nem sempre se verifica no mundo real, o que vem da demonstração científica, até chegarmos àquela mais pequenina, mais concentrada, que são os ensaios clínicos, e, portanto, nós precisamos saber no mundo real o que é que acontece com as pessoas, em termos de saúde. E nisso nós temos, de facto, dados de 26 anos de atividade, portanto, mais de 100 mil pessoas que residem em Matosinhos têm os seus dados de saúde coletados ao longo de 26 anos. Num sítio que não é uma base única, mas passou a ser, porque conseguirmos conciliar as diferentes estruturas, como é sabido, e isso permite-nos perceber resultados em saúde, fatores de risco, etc., tudo o que aconteceu ao longo destes anos todos em termos de saúde, e com o município priorizar regiões e zonas de Matosinhos. Matosinhos é um concelho muito pequeno, muito desenvolvido do ponto de vista socioeconómico, como podem verificar, né? Mas que é um exemplo do país. Pelas médias estamos muito bem, mas em termos de desigualdade estamos muito mal, exceto do ponto de vista da desigualdade, que estamos muito bem, isto é um município muito desigual. Mas Portugal também é um país muito desigual e provavelmente dos países mais desenvolvidos situa-se no top 5, para não dizer que é o segundo país mais desigual, em que há mais diferenças, em que há mais problemas de acesso a tudo, não é só acesso à saúde. Nós temos isso bem identificado e um exemplo mais concreto deste modelo colaborativo, até com o estímulo acrescido da pandemia, mas não precisávamos dela, é sabermos que, por exemplo, numa unidade de saúde, que era um dos CSPs, que já só havia 2, que era de Santa Cruz do Bispo, é uma unidade muito pequenina, tem um horário de atividade que não é até às 20, porque tem um staff muito mais curto e, portanto, não conseguimos assegurar a totalidade do horário com aquele staff, porque era para uma população de uma zona crítica, para a qual desenhámos uma estrutura de resposta que ela própria em si também era crítica. E isto tudo junto significava que quando víamos os indicadores de qualidade de vida e de estado de saúde, tínhamos os piores resultados naquela zona. Com a pandemia fechámos essa unidade, mas isto do ponto de vista da resposta àquela população foi compreendido no contexto da pandemia, mas não era uma solução aceitável, quer para a Junta da União de Freguesias, quer para o município. Aquelas pessoas precisavam de uma resposta, porque para além disso não tinham acesso a meios de transporte, fosse fácil. E desenhámos em conjunto uma solução, já que precisávamos de uma solução para uma outra unidade de saúde, cujas instalações que não eram mais adequadas à atividade. Desenhámos uma solução num sítio, num local em que a Câmara promoveu o terreno, e construímos uma unidade de saúde bem localizada para responder às duas anteriores e para permitir uma resposta à população que estava mais discriminada em relação a outros aspectos, que fosse, pelo menos em termos de acesso à saúde, semelhante ao município todo. E, portanto, numa nova unidade, que é uma OSF modelo B, integramos toda essa resposta. E isto foi desenvolvido com estes objetivos comuns com o município, assim como desenvolvemos a saúde escolar, etc. Fizemos tudo de forma integrada, de forma que os profissionais que existem de psicologia, das várias áreas na escola, que já os têm ou que o município os tenha, nós não temos que os repetir. Nós fazemos isto de forma integrada e perfeitamente planeada, de maneira que não haja sobreposição e, portanto, o esforço de integração é incluir todas as unidades e distribuir todas as tarefas de maneira que o esforço seja único. Por exemplo, outro bom exemplo é o trabalho que podemos fazer com as estruturas residenciais, em relação às quais queremos promover respostas em termos de saúde com as pessoas no local e, portanto, nessas áreas que no início havia algumas questões, até pela própria definição, voltámos outra vez ao problema dos silos, que não são só silos de especialidades médicas, ultrapassou-se a questão da hospitalização domiciliária, porque a hospitalização domiciliária, do ponto de vista de princípio, é aplicável, ou até mais facilmente aplicável nessas estruturas, porque já tem alguma resposta em termos de saúde e, portanto, que também integramos neste modelo da hospitalização domiciliária quando é aplicável aí nessas... Como é sabido, nós temos alguns dos maiores estabelecimentos prisionais também em Matosinhos, portanto temos tudo o que é de muito bom e de muito mau. E temos ainda, além de mais, a estrutura residencial, que se chama Lar do Comércio, que é das mais críticas na altura da pandemia, percebemos isso, para as quais desenhamos respostas em termos de saúde mais adequadas e sempre com a colaboração do município. Estamos a falar de um município com o qual a colaboração é excelente, exceto na transferência de competências, que é dos raros municípios que nem quero ouvir falar disso. Mas isso são questões que se têm que resolver e questões que não têm que impactar no desenvolvimento colaborativo e na definição de políticas muito mais abrangentes que não... O município tem muitas iniciativas que convergem com a saúde, desde o Verde Perto, que tem que ver muito com a ecologia, desde a política da gestão da água, que é dos municípios que poupam ou desperdiçam menos água e têm praticamente 100% de todas as residências com a água da rede e que faz reuniões para discutirmos tudo isto com todos os interlocutores, com todos, que têm que ver com este processo e, portanto, isso é muito interessante, sobretudo depois para lidarmos com alguns problemas, como, por exemplo, a existência de legionela em alguns sítios da água e ver onde é que há a responsabilidade de quem e definirmos as estratégias de intervenção que são alinhadas dessa forma. E portanto, temos um muito bom trabalho com o município, nos níveis todos, e com um alinhamento estratégico em função de objetivos que o município antecipou a neutralidade carbónica em termos do prazo em relação àquilo que são objetivos do país vários anos, quer atingi-lo em 2030, que é uma ambição muito significativa, o que significa que temos que trabalhar, porque nós também queremos, e portanto passamos a ter uma responsabilidade nessa matéria. E isso significa muito melhor saúde para todos, sobretudo para as pessoas que vivem ali naquela zona e, portanto, muito melhores condições para promover a saúde.
Mas, no entanto, não fica imune ou não ficam imunes aos ciclos de mudança, não é? Aos ciclos do poder central. E como é que conseguem criar esses processos de cocriação? Ou seja, dito de outra maneira, esses processos que vocês até já criaram de cocriação sobrevivem a estas mudanças ou de repente estão sempre a ter um tremorzinho de terra?
Não. A atividade sísmica é mais para sul, como é sabido, pelas placas tectónicas. Pode ser por outras razões, mas impacta pouco em Matosinhos, quer dizer, mesmo os resultados das últimas eleições para o poder local não impactaram nada em Matosinhos e tem-se percebido que há um enquadramento que se mantém, um alinhamento que se mantém ao longo do tempo e não se percebe que haja repercussão direta no desenvolvimento destas estratégias. Também se percebe que a agilização de algumas que precisam de modificações legislativas também não acontecem. E, portanto, podíamos ir mais à frente. Mas algumas coisas, por exemplo, durante a pandemia, fizemos-las antes do resto do país a fazer. Como os estados de emergência e outras coisas que decretámos antes. Provavelmente, se levarmos as definições legais à letra, não seria propriamente do mais legal que há, mas fizemos muita coisa de iniciativa do município, sempre alinhado com a saúde. Em relação à resposta ao Covid, foi espetacular. Nós estamos a falar dos raros municípios do país que, por iniciativa da OLS alinhada com o município, portanto, há sempre aqui a liderar os processos, mas sempre com...
Mas uma estrada de 2 vias, não é?
De uma forma, exatamente. Nós fizemos, por coincidência, em 2019, em outubro, por exemplo, um curso de preparação para respostas a catástrofes de grande escala. Não imaginávamos que fosse uma pandemia a catástrofes de grande escala. Toda a gente pensava nos ataques terroristas, sobretudo em alturas tipo as festas do Senhor de Matosinhos, que é uma altura de concentração de pessoas significativa, mas muitos dos princípios e da necessidade e do reconhecimento da importância das lideranças e das cadeias de comando para as respostas serem consequentes e alinhadas, ficaram treinadas nesse cenário e depois a resposta da pandemia muito se usufruiu disso, mas isso foi das poucas coisas que vai acontecendo ao longo do país e normalmente até por iniciativa das proteções civis, das estruturas de proteção civil, e aqui foi por iniciativa da OLS, mas com o município envolvido e com todas as forças de proteção civil e até forças armadas e tudo envolvidas num treino, num processo que, assim como a construção da unidade de cuidados intensivos, que teve uma participação do município indiscutível, quer na identificação de mecenas para construirmos e quer no recrutamento de capacidade. E no mês ela ficou construída, o que significa que quando temos autonomia, que a pandemia também teve essa virtude de nos dar muita autonomia, coisa nunca vista, nós até conseguimos fazer coisas e eficientes e adequadas, sempre discutidas com as tutelas, com o Ministério da Saúde, na altura com a Administração Regional de Saúde do Norte, para percebermos se mais 11 câmaras de cuidados intensivos faziam sentido ou não numa estratégia nacional e regional de resposta. Portanto, é muito hábito integrar isto aos diferentes níveis e, portanto, com o município é tão natural que nós nem temos protocolos, nem coisas definidas, porque isto é mais ou menos como a OLS de Matosinhos. Muitas vezes perguntam-me coisas, como é que faço isto, como é que faço aquilo, e eu acho que aquilo são tudo banalidades. E, em geral, aquilo que eu acabei por dizer até agora, exatamente, são mais dessas banalidades.
Não, mas, prática,
mas, de facto, aquilo é o trabalho dia-a-dia é assim.
Sim, mas na prática não é. A questão é, precisamente, como é que se pode, não necessariamente replicar todos, mas levar esse espírito e a dinâmica para os outros lados também, que também terão, com certeza, outros bons exemplos, mas pegando nas especificidades. Sempre disse que as ULS não eram a panaceia e agora também tocou num ponto que acaba por ser crónico, que é a autonomia. E lá voltamos nós ao ioió. A pandemia já passou, mas a autonomia não. Já poderíamos dizer, não, é um dado adquirido. Não é, e ainda é um problema. Apesar de todos os exemplos que nos deu. E permita-me só um parênteses, porque tem a ver com a nossa conferência e inclusivamente com os painéis das cidades saudáveis. A ULS de Matosinhos e a ULS de Entre Douro e Voga, a nível da poluição do setor da saúde, que é um problema grave e é um problema que quase ninguém fala, mas que é gravíssimo, são 2 exemplos, entre vários, na desobediência civil da reciclagem dos plásticos. Temos uma lei de 1996, é maravilhoso. E depois, mas são estas 2 unidades... É o que eu estou a dizer, desobediência civil. Vocês e muitos a nível da reciclagem, desde logo, dos plásticos. Mas, dizia eu que a ULS de Matosinhos e a ULS de Entre Douro e Voga, nesta altura, para o meu conhecimento, e perdoem-me se estiver a excluir alguém, são as únicas que fizeram a alteração dos circuitos de gases dos blocos operatórios. E só os blocos operatórios são responsáveis por 5% das emissões de gases poluentes deste país. Portanto, há alguma coisa aqui também a nível integrado está a resultar. Posto isto, que acho que era justo dizê-lo, e espero que seja modelo inspirativo também, voltemos à autonomia, porque também agora temos o nosso tempo a contar e há aqui 3 pontos dentro da integração de cuidados que eu ainda queria ver consigo. A autonomia continua a ser o seu maior desafio?
A autonomia é um desafio, manteve-se como um desafio sempre da mesma forma, mas não é impeditivo de se progredir em muitos aspectos. Era desejável que houvesse autonomia. A autonomia significa responsabilidade ou responsabilização, accountability, prestar contas, e nós não conseguimos prestar contas razoáveis se não tivermos um financiamento adequado e não tivermos todas as ferramentas necessárias para fazer uma gestão adequada das coisas. Portanto, isso era importante, sobretudo a alguns níveis, por exemplo, em relação... Bastava-me a autonomia que resulta do facto de eu ter aprovado um plano de desenvolvimento organizacional atempadamente e com ele eu tenho algumas ferramentas porque está lá definido o que é que eu posso fazer e até onde posso fazer. Era interessante, pelo menos, que se verificasse isso, já que percebemos que há aqui compromissos importantes e que são relevantes. E, portanto, agora, a autonomia não é um argumento para dizer que a gente não pode fazer muito melhor. Muito longe disso. Nunca concordarei com isso. Assim como a integração de cuidados é a resolução de tudo, mesmo a integração das diferentes... E como ficou aqui bem demonstrado, não é a integração de cuidados só que vai resolver tudo, mas é indispensável para nós resolvermos muita coisa. E esta coisa das pessoas pensarem que algumas soluções passam a ser panaceias e a sua não realização de alguma maneira justifica tudo, isso não nos cabe, nunca assumimos essa postura e não impede que a gente desenvolva respostas melhores, que se juntam a outros em redes nacionais ou internacionais para as promover, porque juntos fazemos muito melhor, que criamos espaços como este e muitas outras oportunidades para conversar e discutir melhorias ou possibilidades de melhoria e, portanto, como associamos a uma rede europeia, ou pelo menos ibérica, de hospitais verdes, que dentro do programa dessa rede veio a recaptação dos gases anestésicos, como é sabido, são um dos principais fatores no contexto da saúde em relação à produção de dióxido de carbono e que tem um impacto muito significativo. E
poupança.
E poupança. Ainda por cima fica mais barato, é como integrar cuidados. É que as coisas funcionam melhor, as pessoas ficam mais satisfeitas e fica mais barato. Só tem vantagens.
Win-win-win.
As desvantagens são os silos, Nós estamos de acordo em relação a isto tudo. É fácil. Nós, quando vamos regulamentar isto tudo, é complicado. Mas tem uma vantagem, quando nós, na prática, conseguimos implementar processos, é espetacular. Mesmo aqueles que implicam task shifting, definição de papéis mais importantes de outros, a ponto nos doentes crónicos complexos, por exemplo, que temos um serviço para acompanhar os doentes, o expoente daqueles mais velhos, mais doentes, com mais...
Comorbilidades.
O gestor de caso é o enfermeiro da unidade de cuidados da comunidade. Esse é o gestor de caso. E foi a equipa que o definiu, ninguém lhe impôs nada. Que é outra maneira de fazer bem as coisas, é perceber pela construção das equipas quais são os papéis que querem atribuir. Se tivéssemos feito um regulamento para isso e tivéssemos discutido, a probabilidade de termos feito uma belíssima vacina para depois nunca mais conseguirmos fazer uma coisa destas era razoável. E, portanto, nós estamos numa altura em que há muito mais sensibilidade, mesmo das ordens profissionais e de outros interlocutores, para perceberem estas questões de task shifting, de equipas multiprofissionais, de integração muito melhor de cuidados do que alguma vez tivemos. E temos que ter a partir também dessa oportunidade.
Sim, pelo menos não a deixar cair, porque a evidência também serve de pressão, não é? Na conjuntura atual, o que é que o preocupa? Há uma ideia que eu queria realçar, que deixou clara, que é perigosa e que convém que também fique aqui, que possa sair daqui. É que reduzir... Não, só uma que agora destacou, no último raciocínio, que é o facto da tendência e o perigo, até estrategicamente, em alguns interesses, de se pôr as ULS fechadas como o único modelo de integração de serviços. Ou deixar toda a integração de serviços no modelo a dizer que são as ULS, não é? E isso pode ser uma narrativa perigosa. Podemos assumi-lo.
Nós podemos fazer integração de cuidados em qualquer modelo. O modelo ULS é altamente favorecedor do processo. Consoante as regiões, os locais, a complexidade das estruturas de saúde envolvidas, carecerá de ser aprimorada, digamos assim, o modelo terá que ser adequado para as necessidades de acordo com as instituições. É uma vantagem muito significativa para a integração de cuidados, porque respondem todos a uma única entidade. Não há aquela coisa, eu respondo a esta entidade, estes é que me dizem o que vou fazer, eu colaboro se quiser, porque aqui reporta outros. Não, aqui reporta tudo ao mesmo. Isso faz muita diferença. Muita gente discute isso, mas isso é muito determinante e muito facilitador do processo. E assumimos a responsabilização, seja a que título de complexidade for, isto é altamente pessoal, e já sei que tem muitas divergências, por populações definidas. Exceto se decidirmos que há estruturas no âmbito da saúde, mas há em termos de especialização, como os IPO, há outras com um nível de complexidade tal que respondem só a outras estruturas de saúde e não diretamente a populações definidas. Se houver populações definidas, elas têm sempre que ter essa responsabilidade populacional. Eu acho que quando elas têm responsabilidades de formação e que têm associadamente instituições académicas, universitárias, etc., ainda mais têm esta obrigatoriedade, porque nós precisamos de preparar profissionais, se calhar não estamos a fazer bem em algumas áreas profissionais, para aquilo que é a resposta às populações, para aquilo que é a generalidade da resposta, e não para aquilo que é a especialização da resposta, que é em que muitos se focam, os que os realiza muito, eventualmente. A vantagem que isto tem é que começam a trabalhar entre especialidades para aquelas respostas altamente específicas e hoje em dia prestam muito mais atenção a esses processos e delegam grande parte dos processos em relação aos doentes menos complexos nas outras estruturas e, portanto, isso tem que se capitalizar por aí e por aí a gente consegue, com os percursos de doença, com a organização dos cuidados, atingir níveis adequados. Mas, mesmo para a formação dos profissionais de saúde, é importante este aspecto da responsabilidade por populações, por regiões, para se perceber, para se ter casuística do que é comum e não ter uma formação só para as exceções. E em relação aos médicos, estou muito à vontade para o dizer, nós formamos muitos médicos para as exceções. Depois eles começam a fazer clínica no ano de formação geral e nunca acontece nada daquilo que estiveram a aprender. Nunca ninguém lhes explicou muitas coisas destas que são aquelas mais relevantes e mais estruturantes e daquele universo. Nós andamos, já me vou calar. Deixe-me só dizer uma coisa, nós agora valorizamos muito aquilo que representa valor na vida das pessoas, que realmente é de facto o que interessa. O mais antigo que eu consegui identificar foi para aí há 2000 eu digo 2500 anos assim por alto, mas há mais de 2000 anos, foi Hipócrates que dizia que é muito mais importante a pessoa que tem a doença do que a doença que tem a pessoa. Isto era quando a gente não percebia nada de doenças, mas percebia muito mais, se calhar, do que percebe agora de pessoas. E levámos estes anos todos e esta diferenciação tecnológica toda, eu bem dizia que já me calava, esta diferenciação tecnológica toda, que até nos esquecemos das pessoas. As pessoas até vinham pedir desculpa ao ilustre, neste caso o cirurgião, posso ter à vontade, porque o resultado da intervenção cirúrgica não foi esperado e a culpa era delas, porque o organismo não correspondeu à cirurgia altamente elaborada que eu tinha feito e que basicamente não serviu para nada, a não ser para ter uma qualidade de vida pior. Eu já sei que às vezes algumas coisas eu a falar, se fosse a desenhar era mais fácil, porque sequer era uma caricatura. Aqui também é uma caricatura, mas as caricaturas todas têm todas um fundo de verdade e a gente percebe as semelhanças. E é esse ponto. Muito obrigado.
Mas é muito interessante ver como é que um cirurgião tão focado também expandiu, não é? E expandiu muito. E as OLS têm essa preponderância também, que é a sua capacidade elástica e todas as vantagens que daí podem advir. Não lhe vou perguntar se está preocupado agora com o corte de 10% nos bens e serviços, porque não temos tempo. Mas imagino...
Mas eu também tinha resposta para isso.
Então diga lá rapidamente que temos que ir para o café. É uma das questões do momento, não é?
Preocupados estamos todos.
Pois, claro.
Primeiro, alguma declaração de conflito de interesses não é conflito de interesses. Ontem não, que foi sexta-feira, eu às vezes perco a noção dos dias. Na quinta-feira fizemos uma reunião com todos os responsáveis de nível intermédio, todos os diretores, coordenadores, etc., sobre resultados até setembro deste ano, para lhes demonstrar aquelas coisas todas. E falámos disto para clarificar, porque toda a gente acha que não vai haver... Enfim, aquilo que vem em tudo, para lhes demonstrar exatamente que objetivos é que temos. E falámos evidentemente disso. Se nós podemos fazer isso e reduzir isso, podemos. Aliás, nós temos de o fazer. Nós não temos um sistema que seja sustentável. Há que encarar isto de frente. Temos mesmo que poupar dinheiro. Não sei se vamos conseguir poupar esses 10% ou o que for, mas há vários itens em que a gente gasta muito dinheiro e que tem potencial de melhoria significativa, sem prejuízo da qualidade ou até com o incremento da qualidade que estamos a fazer. É uma preocupação porque transportar isto para a realidade é difícil. Portanto, nós aproveitamos logo a primeira reunião para falar disto, para as pessoas se focarem, e a gente sabe muito bem quem é que gasta mais e quem é mais responsável por estes processos, para chegar a cada um e a cada pessoa que sinta que qualquer decisão que toma clínica, o foco é a melhor qualidade de vida daquela pessoa e muitas vezes não o tratamento que vem de acordo com os protocolos, e que pode não ter indicação terapêutica.
E que pode não dar qualidade de vida.
E é um ato de gestão e de alta responsabilidade que tem impacto não só financeiro, como impacto ambiental, como impacto social, como impacto a muitos níveis. E, portanto, sempre que se prescreve alguma coisa, tem que se perceber essa responsabilidade. E os prescritores são os médicos, portanto, MCDTs, medicamentos, transportes, basta estes que a gente se juntar bem e gerir bem, não estamos a inventar de resto nada. A gente sabe que hoje em dia, dos gastos evitáveis em saúde, além dos administrativos que agora já estão muito mais magrinhos, temos os sobrediagnósticos sobre tratamento. Nós temos programas para desprescrever medicamentos, ao que nós chegamos.
Mas importantes. Obrigada, professora, é sempre um gosto.